Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today as we're going to talk about something that we consider a pet peeve. It's an issue we've been seeing for the last 15 years of political commentary. You've seen it as well. You may not recognize it. It's something that we're going to call home run politics. And it's one of the worst things that we see in politics every election cycle. We'll explain what we mean in just a second. But first, we do want to mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we want to welcome you and we thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords allow to hear your voice, to hear your chats, your tweets, and your phone calls from across the world, to hear what you have to say about the issues that affect us all. And we do that because we believe in your right to free speech. It's not just an American value, it's for everyone. You have a right to speak, and we want to hear your voice on all of the issues that matter. And so we hope you'll join us this Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We mentioned the phrase home run politics. What in the world could that mean? What is a home run politics? Well, it's whenever you hear a politician, we hear this from Democrats and Republicans, it doesn't really matter. You hear this about once every 4 years, mostly in midterm elections, because these are the elections where fewer people actually come out. And you tend to hear this the most in towns and cities, counties and states where there's the most problems, where there's either high crime or low or high unemployment, few job prospects, places that are in trouble. And whenever there's a midterm election and the region has problems, the politician needs to have something to try and spark their constituents to come out and vote. Some reason for their party to rally behind them and say, no, this person is great. They need to be reelected. So that's the who and also the when that we hear about this. But what is home run politics? It's when you hear a politician tell you that they have just done something that's going to transform, that's going to revitalize, it's going to boost, it's going to bolster, it's going to kickstart, it's going to change your world. It's going to change your community. It's going to change your state. Everything is going to be better now because they just did something that is transformative. That's absolutely groundbreaking. And everyone is going to be happy now because you're going to get jobs. You're going to get paid more money. You're going to get a raise. They make all of these claims. It doesn't really matter what it is. They always make the same claims on this deal. Now, almost invariably, in every one of these situations, you will not hear about the terms of the deal. You won't find out how they got this deal to pass, what little perks they might have attached to that, and how it's going to be paid in your taxes. Inevitably, every single time, your taxes are paying for whatever it is they're trying to do. And they're going to tell you, well, it's worth it because you're going to make more money now, and you're going to have more jobs now, and the community is going to grow and become better, and everyone's going to want to be here because we just changed everything. This is a game changer. I tell you right now, when you hear the terms game changer, transform, revitalize, boost, bolster, kickstart, you're about to get scammed almost every time. And this is, again, doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. If you are in a community that has a problem, that is losing population, the economy is going badly, and you hear politicians using those terms and it's a midterm election, you're about to get screwed. It happens every single time. And it really pisses me off. And no one ever says it. There's no term for it. So I'm giving it a term, and I hope you'll use it if you think I'm right. Now, let me give you an example, real world, right now, of what we're talking about. As you can see, this is news that came out today from my local community. I'm in the southern tier of New York. And we have what's called the Oakdale Mall. It's a mall, it used to be a very popular, very successful mall in the southern tier of New York. And we had Sears and JCPenney. We had all of the major chains there, and it was very active and made a lot of money. And then about 5 years ago, thereabouts, it died. It was dying slowly for a while, but it really just died. All of the major chains left. The restaurants left. The place was basically empty. Almost all the businesses were gone. Why? Because New York's policies, economic policies, suck. The disgraced former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, was running New York State into a massive deficit. We've been losing billions of dollars every single year, and taxes were going up on businesses and individuals. So much so that many businesses couldn't survive, and they closed, and unemployment went up. And if you look at the numbers, the southern tier of New York has higher unemployment than the nation consistently for over a decade. That's the result. But I want to focus on this. So the Oakdale Mall failed, and it failed because of New York economic policy. The Democrat-run state, the bluer than blue state of New York, had its businesses fail because the policies were bad. To save the buildings, to save that facility, New York State, the local Broome County government has moved into the mall, and that was to replace the businesses that left because that would save the mall and that would make the businesses okay. This is the theory, because theoretically, unemployed people who are going to the mall because that's where the government offices are for unemployment, well, they would then, after leaving unemployment, of course, they're going to go out into the mall and buy themselves a new pair of jeans, a new cell phone, and maybe stop off at the restaurant. That's the logic that was employed. But the mall continued to fail, surprisingly. And when it failed, well, it went into disrepair. And now we have the announcement today, January 24th, 2022, yesterday, the news came out, and the mall is now going to be revitalized. It's going to be transformed. Keyword, transform. And that means it's going to be new and different. New businesses will be in there, and other services will be in there, and no one's going to tell you. Specific details about the transformation of the mall were not released. We have no idea what deals were made to get this transformation. I guarantee you, taxpayer money went into this deal. It's a sweetheart deal. Guaranteed, because it's a midterm election. And there are Democrats in New York State, in Broome County, who want to be reelected at a time that people are pissed off at Democrats and do not want to vote for them, and they are looking at a landslide loss across the entire country. So that's not just me saying that, that's CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, every major news media service has pointed to the fact that Democrats are going to get slaughtered in the 2022 midterm elections. And that's where the home run politics steps in. Because these politicians want to be reelected, and they almost always traditionally do, they go out and they try and find a deal and they promote something. And I'm not saying they're doing this dishonestly, but the odds are against them that any of these sweetheart deals, these home run attempts ever work. It almost never works. And that's where we hear from some of our local politicians. And they mention that this deal, which was done with the Democratic Party, we have Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo, who mentions that that this deal will transform the Oakdale Mall into the Oakdale Commons. This is terrific news for the local economy and for those who worried that it would turn into an empty liability. too late. It already has been an empty liability. That's why the Broome County government had to step in to keep the building alive because there was nothing else. Then there's also County Executive Jason Garnar. And he says, huge news for us at the same as the same developers who built the Town Square Mall and University Plaza, two entirely different locations. They service different people and they have different businesses in there than the general community. Going on. Along with the already redeveloping the former Sears building that was in the mall, dead, which is currently successful, Beer Tree, Lord's Fitness, County Workforce Development. County Workforce Development. The anchor is the Unemployment Office of Broome County, have just purchased the entire Oakdale Mall and will completely transform both the inside and outside of the site. They're going to transform it. Yay! This is just the first of many big announcements we will hear about this project over the coming months, which will bring hundreds of new jobs and tens of millions of dollars of new investment to one of the most important real estate sites in Broome County. And this is a home run. This is what you call home run. Home run politics. We've transformed the community. People will want to be here. Businesses will rush forward, regardless of the taxes of the state, regardless of the policies and regulations of the state, whether or not your state is, as New York is, the worst business environment in the United States. No, that doesn't matter. People are going to come to New York State to open up a business to be part of the worst business environment in the entire country. Okay, so something doesn't sound quite right there. And as we mentioned, so this is the latest home run effort that will save/transform the region. Like hemp, like the drone facility, this does not address why people are leaving the region and the state, which New York State again leads the nation, as we have been for the last 7 years, in people leaving the state. Last year in 2021, approximately 350,000 people left New York State. It does help re-election efforts, like a dozen programs paid for by taxes that ignore the underlying issues facing the region. If the Democrat-led economic policies were effective in the first place, the mall would never have failed. I pray in 2 to 3 years to see this response and be called out for being wrong, but that's highly unlikely. More likely will be that politicians seeking re-election will move on to the next home run idea just in time for the next election. Now you may say to yourself, well, Mike, that's unfair. That's unfair. How can you call that? That's a home run? Yes, because they're transforming the community using taxpayer funds, promising jobs and raises and income and new business, which isn't realistic. And it never has been. Because the underlying problem, which is high taxes, bad regulations, a bad business environment, has been driving businesses out of New York State for a decade. And that hasn't changed. Now that we have appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, who has been putting in even more regulations that have been shot down by the courts because they are unconstitutional, yeah, that's not getting better. But this isn't a new thing. And you may say, well, Mike, you say you've been seeing this. It's been happening over and over again. I'll give you another example of what I'm talking about. And we were covering this at the Voss Political Commentary website. In May 27, 2013, there was an idea that was being pushed at the time. It was being pushed by then Representative Richard Hanna of the New York 22nd District. Mr. Richard Hanna was a Republican in name only, or otherwise known as a rhino. And I do know that Mr. Hanna has passed away, and we do give our condolences again to his family, but that doesn't change his history and his record. And Mr. Hanna was advocating to bringing an industry into New York State. He wanted to bring in unmanned drone systems, to have New York State build these drones, and that would bring in business. And he stated that some 2,000 jobs would be created in New York State, and that there would be, it would lower the unemployment rate in New York State. It would bring in tens of millions of dollars to New York State. That was his goal. That's what he was saying. He was making this big, huge promise. By the way, the promise works out to 0.003% of jobs in New York State, and it had some violations of our rights. And yes, indeed, New York State did open up a unmanned drone system site up at the Griffiths International Airport. And wouldn't you know, it only took until April 12th of 2016. And what we found out through extensive research throughout 2015, the grand total were 6 full-time jobs that were created at the drone site. And at the time, over $6 million in state and federal funding from taxpayers had been invested in the drone site, with future funding being planned. In fact, future funding that amounted to $250 million. There was Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi, who later went on to become Congressman of the New York 22nd District for one term, and then was voted out of office. State Senator Joe Griffo and Representative Richard Hanna would not respond to comments on the status of the drone site or on their prior promises of jobs. Now, I want to be very clear. It was here. Representative Richard Hanna made claims from 2013 to 2014 that in spending your taxpayer dollars, both at the state and federal level, spending your taxes on this wish list, this home run, would create 468 to 2,744 jobs and bring in tax revenues to New York State of somewhere between $10 million and $180 million. These are the promises coming from Anthony Brindisi, Joe Griffo, and Richard Hanna. And the reality was $6 million and 6 jobs. Now you may say, well, Mike, that's still unfair. That's just one example of that. Can you point to something else? Can you point to something more recent? Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo, who is now the 4th most powerful woman in New York State Democratic politics, which is New York State politics, period. Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo has been a massive cheerleader for the hemp industry. She has been saying that this is the home run for New York State since, well, before 2016, but in particular in 2016, as you can see in this article, which comes from SUNY Mooresville. SUNY Mooresville is talking to her about the hemp industry and how this is going to transform New York State. I believe it says it was quoted as being a $600 million market and a big opportunity for New York State. And she believed in this and said, this is exactly what the Southern Tier needed to have. And she was the one pushing for this issue. We got the hemp bill passed and a business came into, was promised. The home run was here. The hemp industry came to the Southern Tier. And in 1 year, 2020, more evidence of an industrial hemp bust appeared this week as Great Eastern Hemp seeks to unload a Broome County building it bought last year to process CBD. Sale of the Johnson City industrial site comes 8 months after the company sealed a $2.2 million sweetheart deal to acquire the property with the expectation of outfitting the former sheltered workshop for hemp processing and storage. It marks the second enterprise to drop plans to process industrial hemp in Broome County. Donna Lopardo represents Broome County. Jason Garnar, county executive, represents Broome County. And this is from Donna Lopardo, Assemblywoman. She says, I don't know if it speaks to the state of the industry. It speaks more to their business planning. You made a deal with a company that had bad business planning. You, in the negotiations to bring in these home run industries that Senator Chuck Schumer himself came to Broome County to celebrate when they purchased this building and said they were going to build this home run business that was going to bring in hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the community and bring in jobs in the hundreds. It all went away. The home run didn't happen, but it was just in time for a re-election year. That home run helped to bolster the re-election hopes of the candidate, just like it did for Representative Richard Hanna and then Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi. It was all a farce. And I guarantee you, if you look in your community, wherever you are in America, and if your community is one that is economically challenged, if there is high crime, if you are in a state that has horrible business friendliness, a bad business environment, if people are abandoning your state, like California or in New York State, and they're running away because your state is horrible and it has bad economic policies, it has bad individual freedoms, it has bad, everything. You're going to hear your politicians, especially in 2022, especially if they are a Democrat, they are going to tell you, but we have a wonderful, sweetheart home run deal. This is going to transform, revitalize, boost, bolster, kickstart. It's going to make a grand, great change in your community in just a couple of years. And I'm the one who brought it to you, so you should reelect me. And in 2 years, they're going to expect you to forget. And they'll have a new home run deal. They'll have a new transformation, a new way to bolster and kickstart the community. Never once actually addressing the underlying problems that are driving everyone out of that community and closing those businesses. I'm tired of this. Nobody in news media calls this out. Everyone knows this happens. Everyone who follows politics, does political commentary, or is a journalist who follows politics, you know this happens. We see this every time. We have spoken to these politicians regularly, all of us in the news media, whether we're large or small, and we know this happens on a regular basis, and it fails 99% of the time. And yet we allowed these politicians to go out and say this over and over again and get reelected, and it fails. Now, I want to mention something. I should add in something. I personally know Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo. I know County Executive Jason Garnar. I've known them for years. I've interviewed them on this channel, and we will always have an open door to them, and we hope to speak with them again in this election year, and we will treat them with all respect that they deserve and is due to their office. That will never change. We don't do gotchas, and this is not a hit on them as individuals, but it is a hit on this practice of home run politics. It is something that we see in Republicans and Democrats alike, and I'm tired of it. It's not about them, it's about this practice that is abusive to voters, in our opinion. Now, you may disagree. You may think this is a wonderful practice, that this is a good way to do things in our government, and you know what? Just keep hitting those home runs, because sooner or later, they're actually going to connect, and it will transform a community. And I would ask you, how much does it cost? How much did it cost in the number of people who weren't able to open up a business, weren't able to go to work because that business didn't exist? How much did it cost in taxes to all the people struggling in that community? Because the underlying issues were ignored. Because the politician wanted to get reelected. Now, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that there might not be a reason for them to be reelected, but it sure means that they're using that as the way to get reelected. It's a practice I think we need to call out. I call it home run politics. And I'd like to hear, what do you think about that? Do you think we called it right? Does it make sense why we call it home run politics? Do you think we're being unfair? We'd like to hear what you think. And we also hope that you'll join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share your thoughts on things like this and everything that matters to you.